Wood stain is kind of a unique subject. It darkens the wood, makes it more pretty, but it can also protect the wood depending on what you need to protect it from and what you're using it for. And in certain ways, you can stain wooden boards to protect them from rot outside. You can also use certain plant stains to protect foodware, such as cups, bowls, spoons. And when done that way, makes them food safe because water or hot beverages can't penetrate in and start to cause the wood to rot or get a bad flavor or go rancid. This is a silver maple burl my friend Nick carved out with a moktagen, carved all by hand, and then actually stained it with hemlock bark stain. And this adze handle, this is bird's eye maple. You can see the beautiful colors all through the wood. That's the main reason I did this. This was actually done with two types of stain. One was box elder root bark, and then the lighter stain that was put on afterwards was made out of alder bark, speckled alder. This moktagen that Nick made me years ago, I restained it several times to make it a little darker because I like dark handles. The color just looks nice to me. And this is actually cherry wood that I stained. He stained it once with hemlock bark, and then I actually made another concoction of hemlock bark and boiled it down and made this even darker. So this is a beautiful coloration. The beautiful thing with hemlock bark is it's what's causing this cup to be food safe now. Yes, you're getting the color from things like, you know, the tannin that's found in the bark. This is a hemlock tree right here. This is a piece of hemlock bark from a young hemlock that fell down in a storm very recently. And you can see this reddish color, and that's actually tannin. The inner bark and the outer bark have different levels of tannin. And they have different levels of resin. The tannin is really what's staining and darkening the wood in the cup. But the resin that's been boiled down and concentrated and then put on while hot and rubbed in and burnished until cool is what's actually sealing this. So tannin is actually an anti-nutrient. You don't want to ingest it. It's the same reason you don't eat acorns straight from the tree. It's just too bitter and it'll cause digestive problems as well as the potential brain swelling. It's a very, very potent anti-nutrient. So putting that on your cup or your bowl or your spoon is not always the safest idea. But with hemlock, what happens is the resins that come out of the bark, out of the sap wood, anything that's being boiled down, they become these little blobs that you'll see all over the wood as it's starting to cool down once you've boiled it in there for a while. And you rub that in with a deer antler or another hard material like plastic or metal. You burnish that in, and you're actually making a coating that becomes a shell that's protective. It's very hard to cut it, very hard to damage it. It's kind of like seasoning cast iron in that sense. And it's a beautiful way to use nature. There's the inner bark, and then there's the outer bark. Some people use just the outer bark to get that really nice black color. Some people use just the inner bark to get a mild brown color. But what I like to do is actually mix them and match them all together. We've got a big basket load of it right here that we've been peeling off that tree that came down. And we're going to boil it. And we're going to boil it for multiple hours. We're going to take a huge, huge wash basin full of this stuff and boil it down until you only got a few cups left. And that is going to make a very dark concentration. And that's actually where this moktagen handle color comes from. It's from the mix of the inner bark and the outer bark. So we're going to be making that today. So we've got a big metal wash basin on top of two logs and a hunter's fire lay. We've got some bark in here already boiling away. It's just steaming right now, it's just getting up to temperature. You can see the steam can get out of the way. You can see the dark color in there already. Now tannin is water soluble. That's kind of the magic of how acorns get leached. You just put them in cold water and the tannin washes away over time. So if you just want to get a stain, you can just leave it in water and let it soak there for a while. Problem with that is it kind of dictates how you're going to get your stain. You got to use fresh wood. You got to use it cut within the week. If you go after bark that's really old, to the point that it's starting to get weevils all through it and bugs all through it, and it's brittle, what's happened is rain has gotten to it, snow has gotten to it. In fact, there's a bug right there. And the tannins are less. There are still tannins in it, but not as much. You're not going to get as concentrated. It's going to be diluted. So, you have to use fresh. The good news is, if you just want to make a stain or you want to actually tan hides with this stuff, which is the history of this with European settlers in Canada and the eastern United States, You just got to soak it in water. Don't have to boil it. You just got to soak it for a while, a couple of weeks, and you'll have a nice deep concoction or decoction. Now, to get the stain that has the wood sealant with the resins, you have to boil it. You have to boil it out because those resins are thermo involved. They are heat reactive. They're going to come out only when there's heat. They're not water soluble. So I'm going to add all this fresher bark. I'm going to keep adding more and more fresh bark to this. And what we're going to do is we're going to boil it for several hours with the bark in, adding water as we have to make sure it doesn't boil dry and burn. We're going to keep adding fresh bark to it as often as we can. And we're going to make a concentrated solution full of here. So that in about 3 hours it'll be all just liquid, no more bark in here. About 3 hours from now, right up to the brim almost. And then we're going to boil that down to about half this wash basin in depth. And that's going to give us about a gallon. If we're lucky, it'll give us about a gallon of this stuff. If we're not lucky, we're going to have to concentrate it a little bit more. And we're just going to examine it, observe it, stir it, move it, and see what it looks like as we go. Now, I was first made aware of this technique, this stain of hemlock, by a good friend of mine, Kevin Finney. Probably about 2012, 2013, I first started seeing his work on sugaring paddles and cups and bowls made with hemlock stain. I was really fascinated by it, but I couldn't fully comprehend what was going on. I had worked with hemlock in the past, but his was food safe and polished and didn't need any oiling and didn't need any tung oil or varnish or anything. So I was really intrigued what the heck was going on there. And it wasn't until my friend Nick Dillingham explained it to me. He walked me through it in about 2013, 2014. And since then I've been experimenting with it. Throughout the winter of 2015, I really started to experiment with it. And this is some beautiful work that Nick has done with the hemlock stain. And with, of course, his own crafting, his own skill with a knife and wood. There's some beautiful cups and bowls and moktagans and spoons and Lord knows what else he can do with this stuff. He's amazing at working this. Other trees and other plants you can stain with and not necessarily get the food safe stain, but still make a beautiful stain is box elder. The root bark is the best, in my opinion. Alder bark will make a very, very light stain. That's where this kind of like faded yellow color comes from. You can also use the hulls from the walnut nuts. You can also use butternut hulls. You can use, oh heck, oak galls. You can use oak bark. You can use a lot of different things. You want high tannin usually. Sumac is one that I've been hoping to play with this coming summer. Sumac leaves and sumac bark from the staghorn sumac. Apparently it makes a light, like a brown silver sheen. It's a really pretty color. I've seen on some of Nick's work and I can't wait to start experimenting with it next. So when it comes down to stains, there's so many ways to experiment. The hemlock tree, Tsuga canadensis, is probably the easiest one to identify and start playing with. But for those of you that are living more in hardwood forests, walnut hulls, oak bark, oak galls, things like that, you can definitely work with. This is what I have in my region. We've got plenty of hemlock in this part of Ontario, so I'm kind of blessed that way. And we often have ones that have limbs that break off and fall down, young ones that die off because the other ones are overshadowing them or storms knock them over, things like that. So we always have some access somewhere in this property. We're always looking around and finding more branches to peel some bark off of and make some beautiful stain. We've been boiling for about 3 hours now, give or take, maybe about 4 actually. And we've removed all the bark. As you boil down, the bark's just going to get in the way and it's going to start getting burnt, which is going to kind of ruin the boil. As you can see, The inner bark has gotten to this very dull beige color instead of that very bright color. You can break it down and add it back in as you go. You can also see that the red has started to spread throughout the bark instead of being little patches of it. That's a sign they've been boiling well. The heat's coming out, the resin's coming out. Pieces like this I'll throw back in. Pieces like this, I can peel that inner bark out. As long as I can take the inner bark out, I'll throw it back in and let that boil for a while, just to help get more tannin. The more we do now, the less we have to do later, boiling down and trying to concentrate getting less and less of the liquid. Right now, this fluid, it's down to about 2 gallons, and it's a coffee color, and it's still very watery. The goal is to get this stuff to a very dark, almost burnt coffee color, and have the consistency of milk. You want it almost as viscous as milk. And when you have it at that consistency, it's very, very strong in the chemicals we're looking for. Tannin, resin, potentially rosins or oleoresins, depending on what's coming out of the bark at this time of year. The best time of year to get bark for boiling into this stuff is actually in the winter time, when there's the least amount of water in the tree. It's the least amount of water, therefore the chemicals are the least diluted, and therefore it's more concentrated. However, bark is easier to peel in the spring. It's just a fact of life. Bark is much easier to peel in the spring. You can do this any time of year though. It can be springtime like what we're doing right now, winter, fall, summer, nighttime, daytime, doesn't really affect it too much because you're going to be concentrating so much. We've put about a tree's worth of bark. I'm sitting on top of all the used up bark. We put about a tree's worth of bark into this one big bucket. And now we have 2 buckets going. We actually have a pot, a smaller pot, and this large wash basin, mainly because we're trying to concentrate the heat in small amounts to boil it faster. We don't have a week to make this stuff. We have today to get this stuff done. So concentrating it, focusing the heat in smaller batches will get it boiled down faster. It's kind of the same thing you can do with maple syrup or really anything else you're boiling down and concentrating. So we're going to keep going along and focusing this heat and getting this stuff boiled down and rendered down to what we want, to a nice thick consistency. So this is an awl that my friend Keith made at the forge one day, and the handle is just a piece of hardwood, probably maple. You can see how light the color is, very light. We're going to throw this into the stain to boil it. And it's going to darken over time and darken over time. We're going to boil it until we get as dark as we can get it. And that's going to help indicate to us that the stain is taking, because we've already thrown this in there for about 5 minutes and it hasn't taken the color yet. So this is going to help indicate when this stuff's ready. The other thing we're looking for is the viscosity. When it's boiling, it should look like milk getting shaken, not water boiling. So we've reduced all that liquid. We threw it in the smaller pot. And it's actually only to about here now. So that's pretty concentrated. The consistency, it's really dark. That is very dark, almost burnt coffee color. If you look at it, it doesn't run like water anymore. It doesn't look like water at all. It's not runny at all. It's like milk. And that's what we're looking for here. So, what I'm going to do, you can see the color all over that aluminum pot there. Stains it very readily. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this pot down. We've got a couple of jars here. These are just glass jars, tinted purple. I use a lot of these jars for things like holding baits for my trap line, things like that I don't want sunlight to destroy. Having a tinted glass is always better. I'm going to put it inside the saucepan to protect it from spills. We got a sieve here. Now the sieve is just to catch any extra debris. You can see all this stuff in there, right there. That's actually from this already. We've filtered it a couple of times, straining it through this. If you don't have this, you can make a birch bark cone and punch very small holes all through it, though those are going to get gummed up pretty quick, pretty gunky pretty quick. But you can also use bundles of grass as a filter. There's a whole lot of different ways you can make natural filters out there. But we got a sieve. We're at the base camp. We might as well use it. So I'm going to take this very carefully, pour it off. While it's still hot, put the lid on. There's the liquid there. Got a little bit of liquid, that's why we use the saucepan, just to catch it. Got another jar. Glass jars are better. You can use metal cans, but the tannin will react to the metal over time. So again, got a little bit more than 2 liters out of it. We're hoping for a gallon, but again, this is springtime, so you're going to lose some of that to water. Again, I put the lid on. We got a little over, I don't know, 2 cups left. So just around 2.5 liters of very potent stain. Let's see what that all looks like. Whew. I'll put that in a piece of leather. You can see how dark it is now compared to earlier. So what we're going to do now is I got a piece of deer antler here. It's nice and smooth. And I'm going to begin to burnish it. And burnishing is taking a smooth part of antler and rubbing with the grain, forcing the liquid back into the wood, all the while polishing the wood, smoothing it down. Burnishing is a really special, neat trick you can do to really finish your wood in a beautiful way. It actually toughens the wood up because you're forcing the fibers closer together, actually making it denser. So I've actually done this for spears, for knife handles, axe handles, canoe paddle handles, even bows. When you're carving a bow and you want to finish it, I like to burnish it with a deer antler, or I know a couple of guys that use boar tusks or not walrus. You could use a walrus tusk. It's very hard and smooth, just like antler. But warthog tusks is what I've seen people use. As you can see, the color kind of fades away a little bit. Just a little bit as it gets absorbed and cools down. But it becomes a beautiful, beautiful pattern all over the wood. Now if you see here, these dark lines, that's actually the resin, and it's still hot. So if I push down on those little beads with the smooth end of the deer antler, just push them around and force them into the wood grain, like that. Yes, it gets darker, but also you're making a seal. This is Anishinaabe spar varnish. Your handle won't easily rot, won't water swell too much. You compare that to the original, you got a beautiful color, an absolutely beautiful color.